The movie opens with Drew and Hannah driving to their ancestral home. Drew's father, Charles Abernathy, a wealthy billionaire, has just turned 75. Today is his birthday, and he has invited all his children for a meeting. Among them are the twins, Madeline and CJ, who are both chief executives at competing billion-dollar companies. The fourth sibling, Kemi, is a social media influencer. As they gather after 2 long years, tension is palpable among the siblings. There's evident bad blood between them. None of them knows why their father has suddenly summoned them. Miles, the head of security, invites them inside, but the house feels eerily empty, devoid of any decorations or festivities. It becomes clear that Charles has called them together for a serious reason, wanting to spend the night with his children without any distractions. Charles welcomes them warmly, though he is surprised to see Hannah, as he had specified in the invitation that it was a gathering for his children only. Hannah sheepishly admits that she couldn't resist coming to wish him a happy 75th birthday. Hannah thought Charles would be thrilled to see her, especially since she and Drew had planned a surprise gift for his birthday. However, Charles drops a bombshell. He claims he will die before midnight. He believes someone is trying to kill him, which is why he has locked himself in the house and sent the security team away. He explains that throughout his life, he accumulated immense wealth and made many enemies. While he has regrets, he asserts that one cannot achieve success without taking shortcuts, and those very shortcuts are now haunting him. He pleads with his children to protect him tonight so he can survive. Charles then reads his inheritance will, revealing that if he survives the night, his wealth will be divided equally among his children. If he doesn't, everything will be donated to the Abernathy Foundation. This news shocks the siblings, as they had never prepared for such a scenario. They begin to think that Charles has lost his mind or that this is some twisted test of their character. Charles had taken precautions, fitting the windows with bulletproof glass and sealing the doors, ensuring no one could enter or escape. He insists that Hannah must leave, as this task is meant solely for his children. However, Hannah refuses to go, insisting she is ready to help if Charles is telling the truth. CJ and Madeline conclude that Charles has lost it, viewing this as a last-ditch effort to unite the family. Meanwhile, Hannah wonders if there's even a slight chance that someone might be after him. Drew and Kemi support this idea and decide to search the house for anything suspicious, while CJ and Madeline retreat to their room. Kemi starts her investigation in the wine cellar, where antique wines are stored. However, her interest quickly shifts from searching for threats to indulging in the wines, more eager to drink than to investigate. Drew tells Hannah about an antique room in the house, where Charles has collected numerous historical artifacts. He was deeply interested in the occult, which adds an eerie vibe to the atmosphere. Meanwhile, Kemi continues her search in the wine cellar when she suddenly hears a low growling voice approaching her. She feels a presence lurking in the darkness, sending her into a panic. In her haste, she rushes back to the door, only to find it locked. Unbeknownst to her, CJ had locked it as a prank. However, a shadow flickers ominously on the wall of the cellar, hinting that she is now alone. Drew and Hannah decide to confront Charles to get more information. They ask him directly what is happening, but Charles warns them that they won't believe him if he tells the truth. They'll think he's lost his mind. Meanwhile, in the game room, CJ is playing pool when suddenly his glass falls over on its own. When he goes to investigate, he notices that the scattered balls on the table have mysteriously rearranged themselves. This unnerves him, heightening his sense of unease. On the other side of the house, Kemi is distractedly making social media reels to document their lockdown situation. While filming, she catches sight of a shadowy figure behind her but brushes it off as nothing. However, as she turns to head back, she is suddenly attacked from behind. She falls into the swimming pool, her phone sinking with her. In a chilling scene, we see her being strangled underwater, her body eventually floating to the surface, blood staining the water. Back in the game room, Madeline joins CJ and proposes a sinister idea, taking advantage of Charles's apparent mental decline to orchestrate a hostile takeover of the family empire. The tension thickens as the siblings grapple with their dark motivations amid the unfolding chaos. Madeline references a corporate executive whose children had conspired against him, highlighting the potential for betrayal within families. Meanwhile, Drew and Hannah grow increasingly worried about Kemi, who has been silent for too long. They decide to search for her, but their hearts sink when they discover her lifeless body. CJ is overwhelmed with guilt, blaming himself for not keeping a closer eye on her as the eldest sibling, admitting he was too focused on plotting the takeover. Madeline, however, views Cammie's death as an accident but begins to suspect Hannah, questioning whether she and Drew could have killed Cammie for her inheritance. This accusation ignites Drew's anger, leading him to suggest that the twins could also be involved. Tensions flare as accusations are exchanged, but Hannah intervenes, suggesting that the real killer might still be inside the house. They inform Charles of Cammie's tragic fate, and while he expresses sorrow, he refuses to open the door, warning that things will only worsen as midnight approaches. He reveals that he is being hunted not by a human but by an evil spirit, a consequence of a deal he made years ago that cost someone their life. In a surprising turn, Charles modifies his will, transferring Cammie's $2 billion share to Hannah, stating that her choice to stay proves her worth. This decision leaves the siblings in shock as they grapple with their grief, suspicion, and the looming threat that Charles believes is after him. As midnight draws near, the atmosphere thickens with tension and uncertainty. The urgency to save Charles from the supernatural ghost seems insane to the twins. In frustration, CJ picks up a gun, locks Charles in his library, and retreats to his room. Drew and Hannah suggest searching for the supposed ghost, which irritates CJ. He suspects this is all a plot to grab the money, especially now that Hannah is set to inherit $2 billion. The twins have never liked Hannah, feeling that Charles's acceptance of Drew's marriage to her was a mistake. As Drew and Hannah search, they discover that Cammie's body is missing. Someone has dragged it away, freaking Hannah out. She wants to escape the house like Usain Bolt, but all the exits are locked. In a moment of desperation, she begins smashing windows, but it proves futile. Drew stops her, reminding her that there's another way out through the antique room. In her room, Madeline senses a ghostly presence that resembles Cammie. She later tells CJ about a boy she liked in college whom Charles rejected due to his status, noting the inconsistency in his acceptance of Hannah. The twins believe Hannah and Drew are trying to replace them, despite their hard work and dedication to Charles. They decide to eliminate them for good. In the antique room, Charles has collected numerous artifacts, statues, and portraits that Drew's mother believed to be cursed. Madeline believed that the items in the antique room would haunt Charles one day, which is why she protested their presence. Charles had even installed a separate elevator for this room, avoiding the main entrance for bringing in the artifacts. As Hannah attempts to escape through the elevator, she becomes stuck, crushed by an invisible force. Drew quickly pulls her free, but it's clear that something is very wrong. Suddenly, all the statues in the room turn to face them, staring intently. The lights go out, and items begin to fall around them. As they try to escape, they catch a glimpse of a horrific ghost. Just then, they hear a knock from their dad's room. Rushing to investigate, they discover a hidden wall opening, suspecting that Charles may have rushed in there. They enter the space, and CJ locks the vault, intending to trap them inside. The vault is fitted with an exhaust fan, and soon the oxygen will deplete. As the twins breathe a sigh of relief, they hear their dad's knock and see a shadowy figure following them. Madeline steps forward to check it out, only to find footprints approaching her. Suddenly, she is lifted into the air by her throat and dragged away. CJ watches in horror and follows her. Next, we see Madeline in her room, standing in front of Cammie's portrait, from which blood drips down. An evil entity in Cammie's shape emerges from the portrait and attacks Madeline. CJ rushes in with his gun to stop it, but it's too late. The entity now advances toward him. In a panic, CJ fired the gun, accidentally hitting Madeline, who fell lifeless to the ground. Horrified, he rushed to rescue her but failed. The knocking voice returned, haunting him as an evil entity closed in. To his shock, Madeline's body vanished before his eyes, intensifying his fear. Realizing his grave mistake, CJ sprinted to the vault and released Drew and Hannah, who were nearly out of oxygen. They thanked him, unaware that he was the one who had trapped them. CJ urged them to confront Charles while he prepared to face the entity with just one bullet. However, the entity was cunning. It began to chase Drew and Hannah as they ran for their lives. They managed to lock themselves in a room, where they discovered another hidden space filled with occult items, summoning spells, and ritual books. Hannah pieced together that Charles had made a deal with a supernatural entity. Meanwhile, the entity tormented CJ, compelling him to jump from a height. It then took the form of Madeline, intending to drain the last remnants of his life. As midnight approached, the entity's power grew stronger, chasing Drew and Hannah as they dashed into Charles's room. Finally, Charles explained his actions. He revealed that his forefathers had once been incredibly wealthy, but by the time it came to his father, they had lost everything to various scams. Desperate to escape poverty, he had struck a deal with a demon named Mammon. Charles revealed that he had made a deal with Mammon, the demon of greed. The pact stipulated that his soul would be taken on his 75th birthday in exchange for immense wealth. Initially, Charles reveled in his riches, but after witnessing his wife's death, a new creed took root. He yearned to leave a lasting legacy. In desperation, he renegotiated the deal, offering his bloodline in exchange for his mortal life. This was why he had summoned his children that night. The demon was targeting them for his selfish desires. True, taken aback by his father's revelation, felt betrayed. Without hesitation, Charles aimed his gun at True and shot him at point-blank range. Hannah gasped in shock, unable to comprehend the brutality of her father-in-law. In his defense, Charles coldly stated that he had repeatedly asked them to leave the house, yet they chose to stay. As he turned the gun on Hannah, she fled from him. Outside, she grabbed CJ's gun, which still had one bullet left. When Charles charged at her, she fired, hitting him. With the clock striking midnight, Hannah revealed a shocking truth. She was pregnant with True's child, ensuring the Abernathy bloodline would continue. True had planned to share this news with Charles as a birthday gift, but fate had twisted their plans. Unable to fulfill his end of the deal, the demon claimed Charles's life. The next morning, Hannah emerged from the chaos, mourning the loss. She never desired wealth. Her love for True was genuine, and she had hoped to embrace his family, despite their creed. With that, the story concludes.